Hi everybody, Gobbo Slayer here, and today I'm going to be breaking down a battle of a tournament game between myself and Imperator. This is going to be a great match between Wood Elves and Dark Elves. We both have pretty small armies and pretty symmetrical armies to boot. There's a few differences, as you'd expect, between the factions, but overall our armies are not that dissimilar. We have a nice map here on Iron Sand Deserts. It's a little hilly, but overall still a pretty balanced map. I have a front line here of Eternal Guard and Dryads for a little bit of extra anti-infantry. Spell Singer with just Earthblood, so I'm going to be spamming a lot of simple healing, but it's a pretty good strategy right now. Double Way Watchers, we're going to be doing the bulk of my damage if everything goes according to plan. And of course, Big Fat Dragon up in the sky. I'm going to be coming in with some Fat Breath attacks as well as some Prey of Anathramas to net my opponent down. And Imperator has responded with the Dark Elves, and he has expected this type of army that I'm running quite well. He's got a lot of mobility, thin front line, and a nice big self-healing dragon, so along with two Scourge Runner chariots. So whereas I have Way Watchers, he's got Scourge Runners. You know, I have Sisters of Thorn and Wild Riders. He has Slaanish's Harvesters, Dark Riders, and some Cold One Riders. The one thing that I think is going to get him in trouble here is that his army is pretty narrow. He's one less infantry unit than me, which is going to make it hard for him to break through my front line. And while the mobility advantage does go in favor of him, the Harpies and the Dark Riders aren't going to hold up in melee very well at all, especially to the cav that I've brought. So let's see how things unplay here. You'll notice that I'm going to zoom out here and go to the middle of the map so you can kind of see where we are relative to the middle. We're on the far left side of the map right now, and the reason that you see this happen is not because of white line camping, but the fact that we're trying to basically prevent a flank overload from hitting us, or we're trying to flank overload our opponent, and just deploying to one side of the map or the other makes that a lot easier. And so that's why you're going to see that happen a lot in these high level games. Just wanted to point that out real quick as the battle unfolds. This was a pretty grueling tournament, very long day for both of us, so we're both still giving it our best. I'm getting some initial poking with my Way Watchers, just shooting at whatever I can right now. And my opponent comes in with a really aggressive move. I wasn't expecting this, and I make a huge mistake here by letting all my infantry get clumped up to the right. I had been trying to shift over more towards the center of the map, but didn't take into account that my infantry were moving, over there, but my Way Watchers were still moving this way. So as a result, my Way Watchers are totally out of position. You need to have, when you're running a Way Watcher style army like this, you need to have your cav and your infantry and your Way Watchers all screening for each other. So my opponent's going to come in hard. He smells blood in the water. He wants these Way Watchers dead so badly. So I'm forced to use my Sisters of Thorn, my Wild Hunters. I pop an Overcasted Earthblood, and my opponent responds with a Soul Stealer from the Slaanish's Harvesters. I'm just outnumbered here, and my cav really aren't meant to take this kind of fight. They're only meant to block or countercharge. I get the dragon in where I can, and this engagement happens so fast. I'm going to slow it down again. I get a quick Prey of Anathramas on the Dark Riders, which isn't the best because they're a cheap cav unit. He does get one unit through here, but they're not going to do a whole lot of damage, and they're going to get demolished by these Wild Hunters of Kurnus on the rear pretty quickly. I'm also getting my Eternal Guard into position finally to start screening out for the Way Watchers as they kind of go back and around towards the rear of my army. Unfortunately, though, as a result of all that, my cav have gotten completely decimated in the front. The Sisters of Thorn didn't even get their abilities off. I was so busy trying to micro everything else that I wasted my Shield of Thorns and my Curse, which is basically a 1,200 point unit down the drain. My opponent really hasn't taken a whole lot of damage in return. Some of these Harpies have taken some shots as the Way Watchers retreat. The Dark Riders are terror routing off, and we did get a lot of damage on this one, but the rest of his mobility core is pretty healthy. You'll see as he's diving in on the Way Watchers, though, he clumped up all his infantry, so this is a blunder from my opponent as well. Just like I made a mistake with my infantry, he did as well. I'm starting to spread out my infantry back into position. and I've managed to stop his mobility for the most part. He does have some units coming around the flank, but the Wild Hunters here are just doing a phenomenal job taking out mobile units wherever they are, and I was able to stop up the Cold One Riders with these Eternal Guard. The Way Watchers are getting harassed really heavily by the Harpies right now, but I am able to peel them off with the Wild Riders that just came back. He's bringing his mobile units around the front. Both dragons in the front line, munching on whatever they can. However, I have the infantry advantage as I have 2 units of Eternal Guard in here, helping things towards my favor, along with the Wild Hunters, who are, again, doing phenomenal damage. Up to 78 kills so far, which is great. He does get a unit of Dread Spears around, but I should be able to peel them off pretty quickly. Just trying to free up my Way Watchers, and my opponent's being relentless. And the reason that he's being so hard and not letting my Way Watchers breathe for a second is that I would start doing tremendous damage on whatever I was shooting at. So you really just have to, when you know, fighting this kind of army, you have to stay on the Way Watchers, have to keep shutting them down. Slaanesha's Harvesters finally get broken off. The Cold One Riders finally get broken off. The Harpies are almost dead. My Dragon doing a bunch of damage to all these mobile units. Dragons are actually really good against cav type units and pretty good against chariots too when they can actually start nibbling on them. I get a net on Malekith here just to slow him down and stop him from cycle charging me. So I try to get my cavalry form because I desperately need these cav units to come back, otherwise I'm not going to have the mobility advantage any longer. Way Watchers are taking a beating, trying to get Earthbloods off wherever I can. I do manage to consolidate a second line of infantry back here, which is going to be really important for keeping the Way Watchers safe, or at least stabilizing my position. These Wild Hunters still getting chased off by the Scourge Runners, but in turn I do get a few big hits on this one over here with my Dragon. You shoot into Way Watchers, not doing too bad. This one did get routed off by the remnants of his cavalry. These guys are gonna get rode down by the Scourge Runners and the Harpies, but my Wild Hunters have come back and they get a nice countercharge off on the Slaanesha's Harvesters and they take them out, killing them. Wow, fighting to 1 HP. What a unit the Slaanesha's Harvesters are. Way Watchers getting rode down earlier. The infantry line I'd formed up is able to outnumber the units that do get through from him. And I do have 1 unit of Way Watchers that have come back, but a lapse in micro means that these Crows of Cain are going to get on them and basically shut them down. I could have shot them on the approach, but there was just too much going on. I get a huge breath attack off on these Bleak Swords that were clumped up on the front of my infantry. You know, and that's just one less infantry unit that I'm going to have to deal with. Nice charge in from the Hunters of Kurnus, decimating these Bleak Swords since I had broken their charge defense with my Spellsinger. I come in and get a really nice melee attack with the Blade Lord, another fat Earthblood. He's going to try to get his own breath attack in here, but it's really not going to hit too many guys. It's really not squared up as well as mine was. And the Scourge Runner Chariots are running low HP just from getting hit by cav so much. Another nice rear charge from the Hunters of Kurnus, doing really healthy damage to these Black Arcs and dropping their leadership low enough to where they're gonna probably get terror-routed by my Dragon. Yep, there it is. Crows of Cain coming back, but they're almost dead. You know, the units in the distance are going down, but he landed Malekith to try to get some damage into my spears, and he's paying the price now. He's been hit with the net, the Prey of Manathrema, minus 22% missile resist. And just because my Way Watcher's dead doesn't mean I'm completely out of missile attacks, as you see here. Get a bad attack on Malekith. I think I'm doing almost like 1,000 damage. And, nice trap in here. He gets hit in the rear by my Dragon down to 1,700 hit points. His infantry's in tatters. The Scourge Runners are around, but they're very low on health. They really don't have enough health to even get back in this amount of spears that I have here. We have a last duel between the dragons up in the sky, but this is where the physical resist and my Lord is going to come into play, along with the magical attacks cutting through Malekith's physical resist, and the poison that I apply making him do even less damage when I land hits. None of us landing any big hits so far, but the infantry fight's going in my favor as I have the numbers. The Hunters came back one more time, only 150 HP left. Malekith gets hit, he's wavering. And with that, I think it's going to be army losses as he finally routes off. So what a battle between me and Imperator. This was quite an intense game, only about 7.5 minutes long, and it's just non-stop action from start to finish. Really well played to him. He played it very well. I think, it just really came down to his army not being quite wide enough so that he could shut down my Weight Watchers efficiently. He took so much damage on his cav. 126 kills on the Wild Hunters, and a lot of that was on his mobile units, so he just didn't have the firepower that he needed. Normally you would want the Scourge Runners to be shooting in a little bit longer. It would, wearing down the elite cav of the Wood Elves a little bit, or the Dragon or something, but he went in so hard and so deep early that he paid the price for it in the late game, even though I made that huge mistake with my infantry early on. So really well played. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.